In the restless world outside, everything moves fast, but science sometimes chooses to wait. Not all discoveries come from dazzling explosions or quick answers. Some truths take years, decades, even centuries to whisper their names, and there are people, quiet and patient, who dedicate entire lifetimes to listening for those whispers. These are not just experiments. They are meditations on time itself, a drop of pitch falling once every 10 years, a clock built to tick for 10,000 a seed, sleeping in silence for a century, and then blooming dot in labs and caverns and ancient vaults. We've hidden instruments that do not care for speed, only for truth. When it's ready, these stories are about the slowest science in the world. But more than that, they are about what it means to wonder without hurry, to trust that even silence can be full of answers if you are still enough to hear. So lie back, close your eyes, and travel with me through the quiet, patient heart of science. Chapter 1. Time as a tool, not a rush. We begin with time, not as a force, but as a slow companion to understanding. You'll drift through the history of patient minds, those who dared to wonder over lifetimes, measuring mysteries one breath at a time. You begin with stillness, no ticking, no countdown, no race, just breath in, then out. Time does not chase you here. It rests beside you like a cat curling into a sunlit corner. Not a predator, but a presence. And in this softness, you notice time is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it simply watches. Long ago, before stopwatches or sensors, humans began to wonder about the world with nothing but curiosity and patience. They observed the sky, not for minutes, for years, for lifetimes. The rising and falling of the sun became more than routine. It became a question. What does it mean to pass? Imagine a person standing in a field of wheat, watching shadows stretch from stone to tree. This is science, too. This waiting, this wondering. There were no labs then, no equations, just the earth and the breath of someone noticing how long it takes the morning dew to dry. In ancient Mesopotamia, time was measured in shadows. They built towering obelisks, sun markers that cast long, slow-moving lines on the ground. The movement of a shadow became a measure of change, not rushed, not forced, just observed. You can picture someone lying back, arms folded beneath their head, watching a shadow inch across stone and thinking, this means something. Time was a tool for listening, and in listening, knowledge came. Centuries passed. Minds grew curious in new directions. Galileo, with his lanterns and swinging chandeliers, marked the pendulum's rhythm, not with seconds, but with his own pulse. He listened to time as if it were a lullaby, swinging back and forth like a cradle above the earth. You wonder, perhaps, why he didn't hurry, why any of them didn't hurry. But this is the hidden truth of great science. The best ideas often arrive slowly, like fog across a meadow. Rushing chases them away. You drift now to the patient brilliance of Charles Darwin, his notebooks filled not with answers, but observations, insects, worms, finches. He let the idea of evolution ripen over decades. He watched and he waited. Nature, he knew, does not reveal itself all at once. It offers hints if you are still enough to see. This stillness is your companion now. You are lying in a garden of thinkers who who chose slowness. Their pace allowed them to see connections others missed. A comet returns, a plant tilts, a mineral cracks. Time stretches these details into meaning. Even now, the world is full of slow experiments. Glaciers are melting, but not all at once. Seeds buried in soil have yet to sprout. Physicists track particles whose decay might take longer than the lifespan of stars. These are not rushed conclusions. They are invitations to watch more deeply. Close your eyes. Picture a watch with no hands. It ticks, but only once a century. That tick still matters. It is still part of something real. Time, when treated with patience, reveals patterns that would otherwise remain invisible in modern labs. 2. Some scientists still whisper with time. Sleep studies that stretch across generations. Clocks calibrated to microseconds, not because we want speed, but because we need precision. And even in precision, there is slowness, a kind of reverence. You can almost hear it, because time is not just the thing you measure. It is the canvas on which you measure. In the soft hum of atoms, in the quiet drift of stars, time folds its arms and waits. It is never urgent. It doesn't need to be. What matters will arrive, and you too can listen. Let go of urgency now. Feel how your breath marks seconds without clocks, how your thoughts wander gently through memory, how you exist between each tick rather than because of them. There is wisdom in not rushing. There is science in stillness, and in that stillness, you begin to wonder if time can stretch long enough to hold an idea. Can it stretch long enough to hold a civilization? Asterisk, in the next chapter, we will step toward the slowest ticking clock ever. Imagined, built, not for you or me, but for the deep future. Asterisk. Chapter 2. The clock that ticks every 1,000 years. Some clocks are not made for you, they are made for civilizations. This chapter follows the 10,000-year clock, monument to future thought, quietly counting forward through stone. You place your hand on cool stone. It does not pulse, it does not hum, it simply endures beneath you. Buried in the desert of West Texas, something breathes in geological rhythm. It is not alive, not in the way a creature is, but it waits. It thinks in centuries. It ticks in silence. This is the 10,000-year clock, a timepiece designed not for today, not even for tomorrow, but for 10,000 years from now. It is being built inside a mountain, not atop a tower, not displayed behind glass, not made for the hurried world outside. No, it is slow by design, hidden, heavy, quiet, and it does only one thing. It counts time. The tick of this clock comes once a year. The century hand moves every 100. The cuckoo sings every 1,000. Not because the mechanism is loud or sparkling, but because it dares to believe that humans will still be here thinking, wondering, listening 10 millennia from now. The mountain protects it. The gears are made from stone and stainless steel. No batteries, no screens, only gravity and patience. And that patience is what the clock truly measures. Not hours, not minutes, but attention, care, continuity. You imagine what it would mean to tend a clock that outlives language, borders, even memory. Who will wind it next? What children, not yet born, will hear it chime? The creators call it the clock of the long now, not the short now, the ping of the phone. the flash of headlines, the scurry of calendars, but the long now, a stretch of time as wide as a glacier, as soft as a fog bank, as deep as sleep. As you drift deeper into this story, you begin to understand this isn't just a machine. It's a philosophy, a clock that tells you, look further, think longer, feel time, the way mountains feel it. The mechanisms are human-made, but the message is older than tools. It whispers from the stone, you are not the end. This clock doesn't just tick forward, it folds time around you, reminding you that time isn't something to chase, but something to hold with care. You trace the imagined path of its gears, ratcheting softly, turning a wheel that might not click again, until your great-grandchildren have children of their own. Time, in this place, becomes a landscape, not a schedule. You walk through chambers that haven't yet been finished, where silence is still being carved into the walls. You listen to the wind shift between the ridges, like breath between thoughts. And in that hush, the question comes, why build a clock like this? Because we forget. We forget how to wait. We forget that the earth itself has a rhythm far slower than our lives allow. We forget that not all stories need to end quickly. The 10,000-year clock is a kind of remembering, a monument not to urgency, but to continuity. It doesn't need to speak. Its silence is a sentence. Its stillness is a seed. You picture the far future. A small child places their hand, just as you have, on cool stone. They listen, maybe in the dark, maybe in light. They hear the faint clunk of the century gear. They wonder, and in that moment, they are close to you. You, here, now. Them, someday then, bound not by names, but by the same question. What will last? The desert is wide. The stars are cold. But inside this mountain, a heartbeat continues. And as you step back from the ledge, the question lingers in the quiet. If time can be slowed like this, what else can we learn by waiting? Chapter 3. The pitch drop never hurries you. Wait, and nothing seems to change until one day, a drop falls. We travel to the world's longest-running physics experiment, where pitch, solid, yet not quite, teaches us the difference between stillness and motion. A quiet room, a glass funnel, a jar beneath dot. You stand before it, unsure what you're waiting for, until you realize that is the point. This is the pitch drop experiment. Here, time is not measured in minutes or even years, but in decades. Each droplet takes 7, 8, sometimes more years to fall, yet the pitch, dark, thick substance once used for sealing ships and roofs behaves not like a liquid in your hand, but like a stone. You could tap it with a finger, knock on it with your knuckle, and it would seem to resist, unmoving, yet it flows. The paradox is quiet and beautiful, a material that appears solid, but isn't. A motion so slow, it vanishes from daily view. You start to understand, patience is not absence. It is presence, drawn thin. The original experiment began in 1927 at the University of Queensland in Australia. A physics professor, Thomas Parnell, wanted to show his students that not all things are what they seem. He melted pitch, poured it into a sealed glass funnel, and let it settle for 3 years. Only then did he snip the stem end. The waiting began. The first drop fell in the 1930s, then another in the 1940s. Each fall, a small gasp from the scientific community, though most of the time, No one saw it happen. The event was too rare, too slow to catch in real time. It became a metaphor as much as an experiment, a monument to patience, a reminder that not all truths arrive when you want them to. You think of your own life, how often you crave immediacy, answers, results, signals that you are moving forward. But here is something different, an experiment that offers no spectacle, only a kind of trust that time, if given enough room, will always reveal. And pitch is not alone. The earth, too, moves like pitch. Its tectonic plates drift at about the speed your fingernails grow. Glaciers creep, carving stone over millennia. Even the mountains rise, so slowly it takes lifetimes to measure. These are not failures of speed. They are lessons in scale. The pitch continues to fall. Sometimes the drops form beautifully round beads. Sometimes they stretch into long necks, trembling before release. The process is recorded now with cameras, sensors, digital logs, but it still demands your patience. And while it moves, you begin to shift inside. You become a little more willing to wait, to believe that change might not look like change at all, that stillness can contain movement. Quietly unfolding, the pitch whispers, not all motion needs to be seen, not all progress needs to be fast. Sometimes, the most profound transformations happen when no one is looking, and so you wait with it, not passively, but curiously, not impatiently, but openly. The jar beneath the funnel holds each drop like a record of trust, a rhythm so slow it becomes invisible, till one day, there it is, a glimmer, a fall, a moment caught, and as you leave the experiment behind, another thought forms. If time can move like this, so quietly, so far beyond the rush of clocks, what else have we missed by moving too quickly? Chapter 4. Seeds sleeping for centuries buried in soil. Sealed in jars, seeds wait with patient lungs. This chapter breathes with the rhythm of dormancy, how life hides in slowness, and what it means to awaken after 100 years. You are walking through an ancient field, though there is no wind, no green, no bloom, only silence. Beneath the dry soil, invisible to your eyes, lie thousands of lives, not yet born, tiny, slumbering embryos wrapped in shells, seeds, some from this year, some from centuries ago. Waiting. Waiting is something seeds do better than most forms of life. They are not in a hurry. They do not know rush. They carry inside themselves the memory of rain, the story of sun, and the instructions for unfolding into green. But they don't act, not until the world says, now. You pick up a seed. In your mind, small, almost weightless. It could be a lotus seed from an ancient Chinese tomb, sealed beside the forgotten name of an emperor. Or it could be an Arctic lupin, frozen in the permafrost since the days when mammoths still walked. It could be a modern barley grain, saved in a vault in Norway, where the air is cold and dry and designed to pause the clock. Seeds are time travelers in the darkness. They breathe so slowly you would miss it. Their metabolisms shrink down to a whisper, just enough to stay alive. And then, like the long pause before a note in music, they rest. Dormancy is a kind of science, so quiet it almost feels like faith. How does a seed know to wait? How does it measure time with no ticking clock? Light and temperature, moisture and air. The architecture of survival is built into their cells. When these signals align, when warmth returns, when soil loosens, when water touches their coat, the waiting ends, and something ancient begins again. There are seeds that have waited through fire, through flood, through centuries of human history. And when we find them, when we gently wake them with care and patience, they do not burst, they unfold slowly, as if remembering how to be alive. In 2008, a group of Russian scientists revived a seed buried for over 30,000 years, found in Siberian ice, preserved by cold. The Silene stenophila plant returned to the world in a soft, bloom-white petals, delicate and unchanged by time. You imagine the seed opening in slow motion, a breath stretched across millennia. Somewhere inside you, there are sleeping seeds, 2 ideas, memories, potentials you forgot were planted. You have felt them stir during moments of stillness, maybe, or during sadness, or maybe during joy, when the warmth of a moment touched something deep, and something inside you leaned toward light. You are not so different from a seed. Your body knows the rhythm of pause. You rest at night, not to stop, but to restore. Your thoughts slow, your breath becomes deeper. In that quiet, you grow, and like a seed, you carry ancient instructions. DNA coiled inside you, passed down through generations, not just from your parents, but from the single-celled ancestors who once floated in warm seas. Within every part of you is the story of survival, of patience, of listening. Seeds teach us that slowness is not laziness, it is a strategy, a kind of wisdom. Not everything blooms right away. When scientists store seeds in seed banks, like the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, they are not saving plants, they are saving possibility. Thousands of tiny packages of future life preserved in silence beneath a mountain. It is a place of trust, a pause button for the planet. Not every seed will sprout. Some are damaged, some have waited too long, but some still hold the code of green, the language of roots, the shape of a leaf. And when given the right conditions, they do what seems impossible. They rise. Even the seeds that fail are not truly lost. They are part of the experiment of time, part of the long patience of biology, which tries again and again, shaping the world not in sudden bursts, but in seasons. You begin to feel the shape of this idea that something can be alive and still be quiet, that dormancy is not death, that time can pass and yet be held in your own life. There are moments you buried because the world was too loud, hopes you pressed down because it wasn't the right time. These are your seeds, not gone, just waiting. What would it take to wake them? Maybe a new kind of warmth, a change in the light, a softness in your soil. The story of a seed is not just about biology, it is about trust. A seed is the most patient promise ever made, and when it chooses to open, it does so with no guarantee. There could be drought, there could be frost, but still it reaches upward. Still it tries. The lesson here is not just to grow, it is to rest wisely, to wait until you are ready, to listen to the rhythm inside you, and trust that timing is its own kind of intelligence. Beneath the surface of the soil, under snow and shadow, the world is full of sleeping things. And the next chapter is about the hands that keep them safe while they sleep. Chapter 5. The Watchers of the Sleeping Brain. Inside a quiet lab, a child sleeps. A century of nights pass beneath electrodes and journals. Here, we enter the longest sleep study in history, where dreams are charted like tides and the brain learns to whisper through decades. The room hums with the gentlest kind of silence, the kind that listens. You lie on a soft bed, cradled not by blankets alone, but by time itself. There are no clocks on the walls here, only the steady rhythm of breath. Yours. Above your head, tiny wires rest against your scalp, like spider silk laid by careful hands. Each one leads to a machine that doesn't beep or blink, but simply records it, listens for your mind in motion, while your body drifts into stillness. This is not a dream clinic for a night. This is the inside of a century-long lullaby to welcome to the world's longest-running sleep study, slow science, measured not in bursts of discovery, but in decades of stillness. You might imagine a laboratory filled with white coats and bustling scribbles, but here, nothing hurries. Instead, time expands. Like lungs filling with breath, the study began long ago, when sleep was still a mystery, not a resting place, but a frontier. Researchers gathered questions like falling leaves. What happens in the brain while we dream? Why do some wake peaceful and others restless? How do our thoughts rehearse while we sleep? They watched children first, young bodies, pliant minds, children whose dreams had not yet been tangled with the noise of adulthood. And as the children slept, the machines waited, whispering in ink waves, dips, and arcs across paper scrolls. The first machines weren't digital. They used pens that ticked in tiny curves across moving sheets. Each dip told of deep sleep. Each jagged flick suggested a dream. The room filled not with voices, but with patterns. And those patterns were kept, filed, cataloged, preserved, not just for the scientists of that moment, but for those who would come decades later. The watchers changed, but the sleepers did not. One generation of researchers handed their journals to the next dot, like torchbearers of the night. What they discovered was not loud. It didn't arrive with headlines or fanfare. It crept in like a shadow across a pillow. The brain, it turns out, never fully sleeps, even in your deepest slumber. It tends a quiet garden of memory. It practices movements. It solves puzzles you didn't know you were still holding. It sorts, it cleans, it makes new space for tomorrow. Through the decades, the sleep study revealed cycles, not only REM and non-REM, but emotional rhythms to dot the way sorrow sinks deeper during certain seasons, the way healing begins before we even speak it. Electrodes became finer, software grew smarter, but the heart of the study remained unchanged: to sit beside a sleeper and listen without waking them. And so they listened to infants wrapped in tiny socks, to teenagers adrift in thunderstorm dreams, to the elderly whose breaths came slower but no less full. Each brain hummed its own lullaby, and each lullaby told the same secret: that consciousness is not a switch but a tide. You learn here that the mind floats, that it swims toward itself at night, often more clearly than by day. You learn that some memories only bloom while you sleep, and that some pain only dissolves when you let the brain wander in its own language. You don't need to understand every line of data to feel its meaning, just as you don't need to watch a clock to know time is passing. You begin to sense the watchers, those patient scientists, not as distant observers, but as quiet guardians of your nightly journeys. They trust that in sleep, you are not absent, you are transforming, and now you wonder, what have you learned while sleeping? What whispers have returned to your waking life, disguised as intuition or ease? You think of the child in the lab, how they blink awake and stretch without knowing they've been studied, how they walk into sunlight, carrying the mystery of their dreams gently in their step. There is no final report, no end to this study, only more nights and more dreams, and behind each sleeper, a quiet presence, watching with wonder, not to change the dream, only to honor its rhythm. Now, you feel yourself drifting to your breath slow, your thoughts looser, and just as your mind begins to wander, it finds a question waiting. If sleep holds such wisdom, what might we learn by listening to what we forget? Chapter 6. Ice that remembers the sky deep in ancient glaciers. Air from 1,000 years ago still sighs. This chapter slides slowly through frozen time as we listen to climate's breath, trapped in bubbles too small to see far beneath your feet. Where the world forgets how to move quickly, ice sleeps in layers, silent, heavy, and waiting. Each flake of snow that once drifted from the sky has settled into a slow transformation, compacted by time, kissed into clarity by pressure, and sealed within those frozen layers are whispers, tiny breaths, moments from skies long vanished. You walk gently now through this chapter, as though moving across a frozen lake where sound is muffled and light scatters softly. You are not outside time here, you are inside it, in the heart of Antarctica, and deep within Greenland. Glaciers hold more than cold, they hold memory. Scientists call them ice core tubes of frozen time, drilled from depths that stretch hundreds of thousands of years. Within each layer, air bubbles shimmer like stilled lightning, each one a time capsule holding the breath of a past sky. You pause with one such bubble, nearly invisible, smaller than a pinprick. It holds a sigh of air from the age of mammoths. The molecules inside it are the same that once passed through the lungs of animals, now only known by fossil. Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, they drifted in the wind, were pulled in by breath, and were exhaled back into the world. Now they wait inside this drop of ice, unchanged, unread, unspoiled. The story they tell is patient. As the ice deepens, so does the story. Dark bands reveal ancient volcanic eruptions. Lighter layers show warmer years, times when the snow fell more gently, when the earth tilted just so, letting the sun kiss the poles a little longer. And then come the sharp changes, the spikes in carbon, the strange warming curves, the long, quiet stretches followed by sudden, erratic jumps. The ice does not accuse, it only remembers. You listen, not with ears, but with attention. The ice is not just a block of frozen water, is a journal kept in silence, where paper crumbles, ice persists, where language fades, chemistry speaks, and the words of that chemistry are delicate. Carbon dioxide levels in a layer reveal the breath of the planet itself. Its inhale through photosynthesis, its exhale through fire and decay. Methane, too, is tucked in gently between the crystals, a hint of swamp, a trace of cows, a murmur of melting permafrost. You drift backward, deeper still, and the air grows older. You reach a layer nearly 800,000 years old. The earth was different, then colder, quieter, covered in wild forests and endless ice. Yet even then, the rhythm was here. Freeze and thaw, rise and fall, breath and silence. There is something sacred about this slow storytelling, something humbling. The ice does not rush, it does not demand. It simply offers itself to those who are willing to listen slowly. And that's what science must sometimes be. A quiet form of listening, not just looking for answers, but letting nature speak in its own time. In this way, the ice teaches patience. It teaches humility. It teaches us to ask not only what happened, but also how did we change? You consider the scientists who journey to these frozen edges of the world. They rise in the blue dark cold, suited in layers, fingers stiff, eyes soft with wonder. They drill down 1 meter at a time, capturing centuries in a morning's work. Back in their labs, they melt a tiny sample, ever so gently, and catch the air as it escapes an exhalation from another epoch. They are listening for the climate's breath. You are too. You begin to realize that these ancient skies, these trapped whispers, are not only telling us about the past, they are showing us what the future might be. The sharp uptick in carbon, the warming spike like a heartbeat speeding up. Ice that once spoke softly now rings alarms. But even in warning, there is beauty, because the ice remembers not only change, but resilience. There were warmings before, slow and stretched across millennia. Life adjusted, forests moved, oceans reshaped their edges. Still, this time feels different, faster, closer. And the ice knows that, too. So you sit with this knowledge, not afraid, but aware. In the gentle hush of this frozen world, you hold the breath of the sky. In your palm, cold and weightless, a message that has waited 100,000 years to be heard. And even as you breathe it in this ancient, wordless message, you begin to wonder, what else might we be breathing? What other slow records wait beneath the surface, storing time in forms we haven't yet learned to read? Perhaps the answer lies not only beneath ice, but deep within trees, in the rings that count summers, or in rocks that hum with radioactive time. Somewhere, even now, the next story waits beneath your feet, and you may already be walking across it without yet knowing what it remembers. Chapter 7. Trees that archive the sun. Every ring is a memory. Every groove, a record of rain or fire. We rest among the tree core of old forests, decoding centuries of sunlight and silence through wood that does not forget. There is a hush in the forest you enter now, not the silence of absence, but the silence of knowing. It is early morning, and the light is still a soft gold, filtering down in sleepy shafts through the canopy. You move slowly, your breath quiet, your footsteps softened by soil and fallen leaves. You feel like a guest in a cathedral made of branches. And here, standing all around you, are the timekeepers. The trees rise like pillars into the sky, ancient and still, but never truly still. Each trunk is a living archive, each ring a written line in a very slow diary. You are surrounded by memory not your own, but the forest's. It remembers floods and droughts, the heat of summer suns, the hush of deep winters. And it remembers not through words, but through growth. Inside each tree lies a circle for every year it has lived. The rings closest to the heart are the oldest faint echoes of saplings pushing through light long gone. Outer rings are younger, shaped by more recent seasons. A wide ring means a good year, sunlight, warmth, steady rain. A narrow one, cold, or hunger, or perhaps fire. You touch the bark of one great tree on oak, older than your country, older perhaps than your language. And you know that somewhere inside it is the exact trace of the year you were born, not marked by your name, but by weather. Was it a wet spring, a scorching summer? That year lives inside this tree. You were both alive then, quietly, indifferent. Scientists call this story dendrochronology tree time. By studying cores taken from trunks without harming the tree, they map out histories with astonishing precision. A tree remembers every rainfall, every windstorm, every whisper of climate. Its body records the world in ways your body cannot dot in. Old forests, researchers sit among the roots, reading wood as if it were braille. One ring might match another from a tree miles away, and the two together help reconstruct a shared season. 1,000 trees might form a pattern of centuries. Fires can be dated, ice years noted. Even ancient volcanoes like Krakatoa live. Scars in wood thousands of miles away. You begin to notice how patient this work is. A single core might be studied for months, each millimeter offering data, hints, rhythms. Tree ring scientists work slowly, like the trees themselves. They don't rush. They listen to the long story of sunlight, and suddenly you feel that slowness settling over your thoughts. What if your own life had such a record? One ring per year, one gentle mark per triumph, one thin scar per sorrow. Would you read your life differently if it grew as visibly as a tree's? Perhaps this is why the forest calms you. It speaks a language you almost remember, one of breath and change and patience. The trees around you hold more than shade. They hold memory in stillness, not loud, not boastful, but present nonetheless. Some trees remember farther back than any story told by mouth. Bristlecone pines in the American West have lived for over 5,000 years. Before pyramids, before writing, before iron, they stood while empires rose and fell. Their oldest rings grew when mammoths still walked. Each year. A whisper of new growth each year, another layer of time. Not every forest survives. Logging, fire, and climate change have erased much of Earth's oldest groves, but in preserved cores, kept cool in archives and labs, the memory remains. Scientists have built master timelines from tree rings, stretching back over 10,000 years. These wooden calendars let us glimpse climates no human remembers, droughts that shaped civilizations, cold snaps that quieted migrations. Even now, new discoveries emerge. In Scotland, tiny samples taken from peat-preserved stumps tell of ancient weather shifts. In the tropics, tree rings blend with isotopes, revealing hidden signals. Each forest holds a different kind of memory, waiting for a careful ear. And now, you lie down beside one of the great trees. Its roots reach beneath you into darkness. Its crown sways gently above, cradling the breeze. The bark against your back is rough but solid, a reminder that time has texture, that slowness can be strong. You breathe in. The air smells of moss and light. Somewhere inside this tree, the sun from a century ago still lives, captured in the growth of a single summer, trapped like a photograph in wood. That sunlight traveled millions of miles, touched a leaf, fed a cell, and became structure, became history. And now that history holds you like a lullaby, what other memories, slow, quiet, patient, are written into the bones of the earth? Perhaps, just beyond the forest's edge, another archive waits. Chapter 8. The wait for a proton to die. What if nothing lives forever? Deep beneath Earth's surface, machines sleep with one eye open, waiting for the softest echo of decay. Here, time is held gently, like breath in a chest, listening, always, for the quiet end of something once thought eternal. You drift downward through the stone bones of the earth, past roots, past silence, past the hum of human life. Beneath mountains, beneath time, a chamber waits. It is vast and still, lit only by quiet sensors that glow like watchful stars. You are here to witness a death no one has ever seen. The walls glisten with ultra-pure water, clearer than any lake you've known. It reflects nothing because it absorbs everything: light, memory, and motion. Floating inside this stillness are thousands of eyes, photomultiplier tubes, wide and glassy, each one waiting in the dark. They do not blink, they only watch. This place is not a tomb. It is a vigil, a place where scientists sit beside the universe, waiting to see if one of its oldest promises can be broken. They are here for the proton. You've known protons all your life without knowing them. They are in your bones, your breath, the blood behind your eyes. Every atom's nucleus holds them like the heart of a clock spinning, balancing, always there, stable. We thought unyielding, eternal, but maybe not. Some theories whisper that protons can die, not with a scream, not with a bang, but with a flicker, a fading, a rearrangement of parts. They would decay slowly into something else, a positron, a peon, a ghost of what once was. But the wait is long, so long that if protons do decay, they do so after 10 years, a number so vast it turns your mind into a feather, floating in the breeze of possibility. To grasp it, imagine this: if every grain of sand on Earth became a year, you would still not reach the age of a dying proton. And yet, we wait. Why? Why sit beside something so silent for so long? Because to glimpse a proton's death is to hear the universe breathe differently. It would tell us that even the building blocks are fragile, that matter itself does not last forever, that all things, even the tiniest, carry endings inside them. You sit quietly in this underground cathedral. No chanting, no candles, just the steady hum of patience and belief. This is science, as prayer, not of faith, but of devotion. Above you, the earth does not know. Mountains rise, forests stretch, cities breathe and flicker. But here, in this belly of time, humans have made a cradle for uncertainty. They have built hope out of steel and water, and they wait. Years pass, then decades. Still, no proton has died. But even silence is data. Even stillness tells a story. The longer the detectors see nothing, the more they teach us what nothing means. You think of the people who first built this lab. Some are gone now. Others have grown old with the experiment, their lives stretching like shadows across the decades. They began the wait, knowing they might never see the result. Still, they came, and so new hands take up the vigil. Younger eyes peer into the dark. The torch is passed not through fire, but through the patient hunger for knowledge. There is beauty in such a wait, not flashy, not fast, but like a tree growing in the dark, reaching toward a light it has never seen. The detectors are silent today. They were silent yesterday. They may be silent forever, and yet, every moment, they do not see a proton diase, another confirmation. Whisper that the universe is more stable than we feared, or more mysterious than we imagined. Sometimes, science is not about answers, but about standing very still with a question so vast and slow-thought it outlives nations, outlives names, outlives even the idea of time as we know it. In this silence, you begin to hear your own body differently. The protons in your bones, quiet and steady, whisper that you are made of things older than stars and possibly more enduring. But then again, perhaps not. Maybe everything ends. Maybe the story of Mataris, a slow unwinding of form into formlessness. You wonder, if protons can die, what becomes of the world? Of stars, of light, of memory? What becomes of a universe whose building blocks unravel? And yet somewhere, inside that wondering, you feel peace. Because to wait for a proton to die is to believe that even in silence, there is something worth listening for, a kind of cosmic kindness in watching the smallest things. For the longest time, you close your eyes. The detectors do not. They are always watching, and perhaps, when the time comes, when the first proton sighs and slips away, they will know. And through them, you will know too. The water will ripple, the sensors will blink, and in that brief flicker, the universe will say something new. But for now, you rest in the long pause between questions, a pause so wide, it holds the silence of 10,000 futures. The earth turns overhead. Your atoms wait quietly inside you, and in the deep, the vigil continues. Next time, you will rise from beneath the earth and look outward toward the shapes of galaxies and the strange warps in space that bend light like water, toward the unseen hands of Gravichand, the quiet presence of dark matter. Chapter 9. Gravity's whisper through decades. Sometimes gravity bends light like breath on glass. It pulls not only on matter, but on time itself. You float between falling apples and orbiting clocks, learning how space curves like the slow bend of willow branches in windand, how that curve tells time what to do. You begin again, rising slowly from the stillness below. The detectors sleep behind you in silence. But now, your gaze lifts upward toward the wide sky, where light dances differently in the presence of gravity. You are weightless in thought, drifting toward the truth that even space has shaped. And time does not always flow in a straight line. Imagine a mountaintop, not one of sharp rocks and wind-whipped snow, but a quiet one, green, rounded, serene, high above sea level. A clock ticks softly on its summit down. In the valley below, another clock ticks to dot. They are perfect, machines identical in every gear and purpose. But one runs just slightly faster than the other. Not by much, barely a breath, but it is enough. This is gravity's whisper. The clock in the valley lives, deeper in Earth's embrace, and gravity pulls on it just a little more, stretching time like taffy, slowing it with the gentlest of hands. The higher clock, farther from Earth's center, is freer, lighter, quicker, not by seconds, but by nanoseconds, by slivers of forever. This truth is not science fiction. It is real and proven and used. The GPS in your pocket, your quiet guide through city streets works, only because we account for this difference. Clocks in satellites tick faster than clocks on the ground, and if we ignored that, your map would slowly forget where you are. Time bends in the presence of gravity, and gravity, you come to understand, is not a force that pulls, but a shape that curves. You remember the stories of Newton, the apple falling, the moment of revelation. But now you listen for Einstein's voice, softer, more abstract, explaining that the apple falls because the earth curves the fabric of space and time, and in that curve, the apple simply follows the straightest path. It cannot straight line through a curved space. You picture space like a great velvet sheet, soft and endless, and each mass, each planet, star, you presses into it, making dips and valleys. The larger the mass, the deeper the well, and light, though it travels always straight, follows these curves, like a marble rolling around a dent. This is why stars shimmer beside black holes. This is why galaxies behind other galaxies appear bent, twisted, magnified. It's not illusion, it's gravity, bending the path of light like breath on glass. Soft and unseen, but real. You drift beside a clock, again, this time not on a mountaintop, but in orbiton, a satellite spinning around Earth in elegant loops. Here, too, time moves differently. The satellite is farther from Earth's mass, so gravity's grip is looser. Its clock ticks faster than one on Earth's surface, and yet it is also moving quickly, its velocity changing time in another way, because speed, too, slows time. This is time dilation, the poetry of special relativity. Imagine two twins. One stays on Earth, one boards a ship that flies near the speed of light. When the traveler returns, less time has passed for them than for their twin. Not because they were frozen or asleep, but because speed curved their time into a tighter loop. Gravity and speed, two artists painting on the same canvas, stretching and shrinking time with soft, invisible hands. You begin to feel it differently. Now time is not a universal drumbeat. It is local, relative, changeable. It flows like a river whose currents shift depending on the land it moves through, sometimes rushing, sometimes barely moving. You rest in this understanding, surprised by its calm beauty, because in a way it makes the universe feel more alive, less rigid, more like music than machinery. You look up again beyond satellites, beyond Earth, too, where starlight bends around unseen giants. The space between galaxies is not empty, it is sculpted. Here, gravitational lensing reveals mass we cannot see. Galaxies distort light behind them, stretching distant images like reflections in water. And by studying the warps and curves, scientists detect something else: dark matter, mysterious, invisible, but present through its pull. You do not see it, you cannot touch it, but you feel the hush it casts across the cosmos. It does not shine, but it shapes everything, even gravity, it seems, whispers through hidden voices. You rest your thoughts on these unseen things: dark matter, bending light, clocks ticking in orbit, and the slow, graceful fall of apples. You think about your own place in this curved fabric, your weight, your time, the invisible valley your body makes in spacetomias. You sleep, as you breathe, as you dream, and suddenly you are not apart from the cosmos, you are part of its quiet architecture. Every moment you live is shaped by the slow tug of planets, the spin of galaxies, the curve of starlight on the edge of gravities. Well, even your dreams are timed to be the shape of Earth beneath you. And when you rise, when you stand or fall or fly, you are always following the silent geometry of curved space. The stars do not shout this truth, they whisper. Gravity is soft-spoken, but it never stops singing. It sings in the tick of a clock, in the light of a quasar, bent around darkness, in the slow slide of time across your skin. And as you begin to drift again into rest, you wonder, if gravity shapes time so gently, what else might be shaping space in ways we have not yet heard? Next time, you'll follow that question into the dark fabric between stars, toward the idea that the universe may be expanding, and something unseen, dark energy may be pulling it apart like a breath drawn endlessly outward. Chapter 10. The Patience of Science. The Stillness of Sleep Hall. These slow questions echo a truth that knowledge can bloom in silence. This final drift brings you gently to rest, reminding you that wonder doesn't always come fast. You rest now, in the hush between thoughts, floating in the quiet after so many soft awakenings. Each chapter before this was a step into the unknown. Footfall on distant ground, a glance into some whispering mystery. But tonight, you are not walking. You are lying still, wrapped in the pause that follows awe, because science, like sleep, sometimes grows not from motion, but from stillness. You remember the clock ticking differently in valleys and sky. You remember protons waiting to die in the dark. You remember apples falling not down, but into curved spaces you now understand. And through all this, one thread has quietly held you, the patience of curiosity, not the rush of discovery, not the trumpet blast of revelation, but the kind of slow knowing that builds over lifetimes. You close your eyes, but in your mind, a lab hums softly. Someone is adjusting a mirror. Someone is checking a line of data, watching for a tiny shift in a beam of light. Their heartbeat is steady, their work quiet. This is what most science feels like. Not fireworks, not frenzy, but a listening long and deep to what the universe might say if given enough time. You picture a desert observatory, its dome cracked open to stars. Inside, a telescope turns slowly, not chasing anything, but waiting for a light that left its home for your species, had names for stars. You breathe in slowly. Patience settles in your chest like warm sand. You begin to understand that waiting is not emptiness, it is space being prepared for. Understanding, like soil resting before spring, like silence before a note is played, like you. Now, resting before a dream, you remember the way time bent around gravity, how clocks ticked slower in deeper places, and now you wonder if time itself slows in quiet minds. If in these moments of deep stillness, you are closer to the rhythm of the universe's most ancient truths, because in the hush of sleep, you let go of the need to answer, and sometimes that's when answers begin. Scientists call it the incubation period, that pause after reading, after wondering, when the brain seems still but the thoughts are blooming underground. It is the mind's winter, a time of roots, not leaves. You feel it now, the slow unfurling of connection, not a eureka, but a gentle alignment, like puzzle pieces clicking without effort, like stars slipping into constellations Sue didn't know you already saw. And even in this quiet, the universe continues. It expands, it pulses, it stretches like breath. And somewhere far beyond your reach, another question takes shape, soft as a ripple, sharp as a needle. It waits, as all things do, for a mind quiet enough to find it. This is the secret. No one tells you that wonder doesn't always come fast, that some of the most extraordinary things happen beneath your awareness, that understanding is often a staircase, but a tide. It comes and goes. It lifts you when you don't expect it, and leaves behind traces a shell, a thought, a sudden calm. You are part of this tide. Each moment you spend with science, whether reading or wondering or simply resting, adds to the slow swell of knowing. You think now of the scientists student never saw the end of their questions, who passed their work like lanterns in a long corridor, whose patience outlived their names. You think of Darwin, waiting years to publish. Of Vera Rubin, tracing galaxy curves night after night, checking code for hours, chasing one misplaced decimal in a sea of stars. Each of them carried a piece of wonder, wrapped in waiting. And you carry it to dot in your body. Atoms spun in stars. In your breath, oxygen breathed on CB. Ancient trees in your dreams. Maybe a question you didn't know you held will find its shape. So you lie here, not idle, but steeping in stillness. This is not the end of your journey. It is the breath between chapters, a reminder that even in sleep, the universe turns. You are stardust resting, cells humming quietly, thoughts rearranging themselves like galaxies. And in the dark, where no answers are needed, you begin to understand the deep rhythm of discovery. Not every night must be a revelation. Not every thought must arrive complete. Some things grow better in the quiet. And as your eyes grow heavy, you sense not a fact, but a feeling that knowledge is not a straight road, but a spiral. You pass by old questions again and again, but each time you're a little higher, a little wider, a little softer. You are part of that spiral. You are part of that patience. And now, as you drift into sleep, you wonder if stillness can hold so much. What might the silence between galaxies holding to? Next time, you may open your eyes among stars again, but for now, let the universe whisper quietly, and let your thoughts dissolvento, the long, slow lullaby of dark